Tonight we are in Revelation chapter 17, a very heavy chapter, a very intense chapter, a very, I would almost say, mysterious chapter, because the word mystery is there in Revelation chapter 17. Let's dive right in. We have a lot to study. This Revelation chapter 17 couples very, very closely with Daniel chapter 2, and I would encourage you on your own time to read Daniel chapter 2, verses 31 to 45. And let me give you a quick synopsis of that. Daniel and his three friends, along with thousands of other Jewish men and women and children, have been taken captive and sent into Babylon. There, King Nebuchadnezzar has a dream, and his magicians, his counselors, his so-called wise men are unable to interpret the dream. Actually, Nebuchadnezzar says, I'm not going to tell you the dream. You need to tell me what the dream was, so I'll know that it's legitimate, your interpretation, and then you give me the interpretation. And they said, that's impossible. Daniel at the time is in prison, and he hears about it, and so he says, God can show me what the dream is and give me the interpretation. And so Daniel eventually goes to Nebuchadnezzar, and he says, you had a dream, and you saw like a human figure, and there was four parts to it. There was a head of gold, and a chest of silver, and thighs of bronze and brass, and feet of iron, but the toes were iron and clay. And he says it represents four kingdoms. It represents Babylon. It represents the Medo-Persian Empire, the second part, the chest. The legs represent the Greek Empire, and the feet of iron, the Roman Empire. But it's very important, he says, the toes are iron mixed with clay, and really iron and clay don't mix. And so at that point, God had given Daniel a prophecy, a vision into the future about the successive kingdoms that would come. Prior to the Babylonian kingdom, of course, the great power of the earth was Egypt when they enslaved the Jewish people. So really, the Egyptian kingdom is left out of it at this point, but we're going to kind of see how it might fit in to Revelation 17 as we kind of do a deep dive here into this chapter. So that's the background, and we're going to be referring to that, and that's a very quick overview, very quick synopsis of Daniel chapter 2, verses 31 to 45. I'd encourage you to go back and read it if you really want to kind of have a better understanding of how Revelation 17 ties together with Daniel chapter 2. Well, let's start here. Let me start reading, and we'll start taking our time and working through this chapter. It's a thicker chapter than what we've seen in the last few weeks, and so put on your thinking cap. If you are a caffeine person, now's a good time. Hope you have it on hand. By the way, I have downloaded the notes. They are on my website, not on my website, excuse me. They are on my Facebook page, and so they're there for you. Verses 1 to 5, Revelation 17, verses 1 to 5. Let me read to you. The title over this section, this chapter, is called The Scarlet Woman and the Scarlet Beast. Scarlet, typically a sign of royalty. And so this scarlet woman and this scarlet beast present themselves as royalty in the future, but we're going to see that they are not authentic at all. And remember, John is having a vision. He's on the island of Patmos, so he's having visions. He's seeing things in the spirit, if you will, and he's using his best language to describe what these things are. And then as we read the Bible, we seek to interpret these things and try to make sense of them. So Revelation chapter 17, verses 1 to 5. Then one of the seven angels who had the seven bowls came and talked with me. And we studied the seven bowl judgments last week in Revelation 16. Revelation 16 seems to be a fast forward to the end of the age. And it's the last seven plagues that are poured out on humanity. And the severity of these plagues lead us to realize that when these things happen, the things that happen in Revelation 16, humanity can't survive much longer. And so one of those seven angels who poured out those bowl, they're called the bowl judgments, came and talked to John and said to John, come and I will show you the judgment of the great harlot who sits on many waters, with whom the kings of the earth committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth were made drunk with the wine of her fornication. So in Revelation 16, we see the judgment of humanity, but here in Revelation 17, we see the judgment of a religious system, a world religious system. And that's the trajectory that I'm going to take on this. I believe that Babylon, Mystery Babylon here, is is a world system, not just a particular church, but really a conglomeration or an entity of churches from around the world that have a common goal. And we're going to be diving into that. So he says here in verse 1 that the angel was going to show John the judgment of the great harlot who sits on many waters. The Ryrie commentary says this about this great harlot and this idea of Babylon. The name stands for a system, and this is what I ascribe to. This is much the same way as the Americans speak of Wall Street or Madison Avenue. When we speak of Wall Street, we speak of the U.S. economy, really, and not just one particular street. When John here is describing Babylon, religious Babylon, he's speaking not just of one particular church located in Rome or located in Jerusalem or anything like that. He's speaking of a world system, and we're going to try to build an argument for that. Wall Street and Madison Avenue are actual streets, but they also stand for the financial and advertising enterprises and empires that men and women have built. And so we're going to be seeing here that Babylon, religious Babylon, is a world system, not a localized system, not just a particular denomination, but I believe a worldwide movement. He says here that the judgment of the great harlot. And a harlot is somebody who seduces people away from their true love. And so this world religious system exists to seduce people away from the love of the true and the living God and his Son, Jesus Christ. So it's a spiritual seducing away of the people of God to a false religious system. We read this kind of language also in the book of Ezekiel in the Old Testament, many places in the Old Testament. The idea of harlotry, spiritual harlotry, is used as a seduction away from commitment to God. Let me read to you from Ezekiel 16. God is impugning guilt against his people, and he says this to them: "You erected your shrine at the head of every road and built your high place in every street. Yet you were not like a harlot because you scorned payment." Israel had sinned so badly against God, they were worse than a harlot. At least a harlot would want to get paid. He says, you just gave yourself away to these idols and these false deities. And God said to Israel, you are an adulterous wife who takes strangers instead of her husband. And so look at verse 1 again. 7 angels who had the 7 bowls talked to John, said, I'm going to show you the judgment of the great harlot, this great seducing world system. And let me try to put a hook in you right now, if I may. I believe the religious world systems of the world increasingly in my lifetime have gone, many mainline denominations have gone from being rather conservative to very liberal. We see the ordination of homosexual men and women. We see all kinds of spiritual wrongdoing. And this isn't an attack on people, but this is an upholding of what God says regarding sexuality and marriage and those things. And yet we see many churches that have a cross on top of their roof promoting things that are clearly unbiblical and ungodly, and oftentimes calling the Bible, out of touch and irrelevant and written by, people that are biased against other people groups and that kind of thing. And so there has been a great adulterating of many, many churches in the United States and I think throughout the world. And it appeals to the flesh. When a harlot, wants to seduce a man or a woman, they don't appeal to their intellect, they appeal to their passion. And so many churches are doing this today, and it's a spiritual outbreak, if you will, that's happening in many denominations today, and we see it throughout the world. It says that the harlot sits on many waters, and the waters is the idea, it's a metaphor for people groups. So simply, this great harlot, this seducing church, affects many people groups, not just Western Europeans or Middle Easterns or Asians, but people all over the world fall under the sway of this seductive church movement that legitimizes passion over purity. And so we're going to continue to take a look at this. Look at verse 2. The angel tells John With the harlot, the kings of the earth committed fornication. And this is spiritual fornication, unfaithfulness to God. And the inhabitants of the earth were made drunk with the wine of her fornication. And so the seductive church appeals once again to our lower nature, to our base nature, to our passions, many times to our sexual passions, to our sexual preferences. It appeals to the desire for finances. It appeals to many things. It doesn't appeal to holiness. It doesn't appeal to the holiness of God or the call to mankind to be holy. It appeals to the lower nature of man, and it does such a good job that it makes people drunk in a spiritual sense. They are just know that they can go to these establishments and they can gather with these people and they can just do whatever they want and live any kind of lifestyle that they want and not suffer any consequences for it, at least from the church or from the people that lead the church. Verse 3, so he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness. So now John has a change of scenery. And I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast, which was full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. So here we see a woman sitting on a scarlet beast. Okay, the woman is the harlot. The woman is the seducing prostitute. The woman is the worldwide church. And she's riding a beast. And we have seen that the term beast in the book of the Revelation identifies the Antichrist. So Antichrist is the one that is promoting her, carrying her, allowing her to be seen, allowing her to make progress. The woman is sitting on a scarlet beast. Once again, the idea of scarlet is the idea of royalty, except the Antichrist promotes his own sense of royalty. He doesn't get it from God. He does it himself. Saw a woman sitting on the scarlet beast, which was full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. This idea of heads and horns, this speaks of kingdoms which the Antichrist will rule over. Whenever we've seen heads and horns, heads represent kingdoms, entities, governments, if you will, and the horns represent power or people of power, like a king or an official or a prince or something like that. Look at verse 4. The woman was arrayed in purple, so she's dressed just like the beast is. The woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet and adorned with gold and precious stones and pearls, having in her hand a golden cup full of abominations and the filthiness of her fornication. She looks great. People are attracted to the seductive church. The seductive church appeals to the flesh. The seductive church gives permission for people to act out and behave any way that they want, with no calling out of any sin or anything like that. It's kind of the attitude and the environment. If it feels good, do it. These are my words, not somebody else's words. God made you to enjoy life, so go enjoy life. Just live it up and do whatever you want. And it's very appealing. And so this church, the woman arrayed in purple, scarlet, adorned with gold, precious stones, and pearls, I mean, she looks great. The seductive church looks great. Forgive my the things that come into my head, just they come so quickly. Usually, if you see a harlot or a prostitute on television or in a movie or something like that, they don't dress down, they dress up, They don't try to make themselves look unattractive, they try to make themselves look attractive. And this is what the carnal church does. This is what the ungodly church does. It dresses up and makes itself appealing to the flesh, appealing to the lower nature. She has a golden cup full of the abominations and the filthiness of her fornication. So she's just filled to the brim, John is describing. This church is filled to the brim of sinfulness and abominations. It says here also in verse 5, and on her forehead a name was written. So now we see the identity of this church. Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and of the abominations of the earth. So a mystery in the New Testament is something that's unknown until we get divine revelation. It's not supposed to stay unknown. It's just unknown until God, if you will, pulls back the veil and lets us look. God reveals the true nature of this church called the harlot, the seducing harlot. She's called the mother of all harlots. So she's not just a harlot, but she promotes harlotries among others. She's called the mother of abomination. So she's the source of abomination, and she's the source of all who commit spiritual fornication. And so, kind of the headquarters. And I mentioned before, it's not just located in a city or something like that, but with every entity, with every church movement, with every, I mean, for instance, even if you think about Starbucks started in Seattle. I mean, that was ground zero, and then it spread all over. I'm part of the Calvary Chapel movement. It started in Costa Mesa, California, Santa Ana, California. And so there was a place where it was born, and then it spread out. And so this mystery church called Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and of abominations, she gives birth to many movements. She gives birth to many entities, to many organizations that promote ungodliness in the name of church, in the name of God. I'm appalled at some of the depictions that I see today, that I even see on the news. You don't have to go looking for them. They're displayed on the news, of people mocking Jesus Christ, to pretend Jesus nailed to a cross with, seductive dancing and people dressed, cross-dressing and all of that. And it's just getting so commonplace now. And as time goes on, I mean, in my lifetime, I've seen it get worse and worse. And I'm not some, Chicken Little that cries the sky is falling, but it's just apparent to anybody that has any kind of awareness at all of what's going on in the world, that this is the trajectory. Now, guys, Revelation, if you shoot, let me just say this, if you shoot an arrow, the trajectory determines where it's going to land. Revelation tells us where things are going to land. So we want to backtrack from that and see what trajectory we are on right now. And we are on a trajectory where this is church, if you will, is going to become increasingly ungodly in the last days. And that means if you're a follower of Jesus, you're going to notice these things. You're going to have to guard yourself from the temptation of them. You're going to have to keep yourself holy and pure in the love of God. It's not that we save ourselves, and it's that we follow Jesus and walk in the Spirit. But the church scene increasingly is becoming Babylonish, if you will. And so this is the trajectory we are on, and Revelation shows us where that arrow is going to land. Verse 6, I saw the woman, I saw the church movement, the organization that calls itself church, but it's really not church. I saw the woman drunk with the blood of the saints. Now this is where the arrow is going to land, where the church is actually, in the end days, persecuting true believers, persecuting true Christians, drunk with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I marveled with great amazement. And so it's not just that the woman is promoting ungodliness and birthing ungodliness in many different forms and organizations in that, but it's that killing Christians isn't just a duty either. And I've even heard, even with the COVID thing, there was people calling out Christians as being this or that or whatever else. I'm not defending the church, by the way. I'm a pastor. I know how wacky the church can be. But what I am saying is that increasingly I've heard in the United States that people calling out Christians and churches as dangerous, and for standing up for godliness, for standing up for holiness, for standing up for the sanctity of life and the protection of innocent children and that kind of thing. Churches are being called dangerous even in some instances. And then, I've had a couple of opportunities to go to Nigeria in the last 2 years. 90% of all Christians being killed are being killed in Nigeria right now simply because they're Christians. For no other reason. They're just being killed because they're Christians, and it's a joyous thing. And so we see here that this, and it's not, I'm not saying that what's happening there is absolutely Babylon the Great, but it's Babylonish, if I can use that term that I just made up. And so the woman here, drunk with the blood of the saints, with the blood of the martyrs, just there's a joy in the elimination of Christians. There's a joy in the opposition against Christians. Verse 7, but the angel said to me, why did you marvel? See, John couldn't believe what he was seeing. And the angel says, why are you afraid? Why are you surprised? I will tell you the mystery of the woman and of the beast that carries her, which has 7 heads and 10 horns. And so here the angel said, don't be surprised. I'm going to tell you all about this entity here. Verse 8, the beast that you saw, remember there's a woman, and she's, just imagine a woman riding a dragon or something like that. Some kind of, I always think reptilian, The beast that you saw was and is not, and will ascend out of the bottomless pit to go to perdition. And those who dwell on the earth will marvel, whose names are not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they see the beast that was, is not, and yet is. Now, Jesus is described as the one who was, is, and ever shall be, but he was also described as, and we know in his incarnation, came and was born, physically was killed, and then came back again. And this seems to be some kind of copycat kind of thing that the beast is doing. We also read back in Revelation 13, it says this about the beast, he was, is not, and will ascend. And so Revelation chapter 13 points to the fact that the beast, also known as the Antichrist, so now we're talking about the Antichrist. The harlot church is joined to the Antichrist. And the Antichrist here is described, and let me paraphrase verse 8. The Antichrist that you saw was, is not, apparently dead, and then will ascend out of the bottomless pit and go to perdition. And those who dwell on the earth will marvel, whose names are not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they see the beast that was, is not, and yet is. And it seems to be pointing to the fact that there's going to be some kind of pseudo-miracle that happens with Antichrist in the Great Tribulation period. And people are going to be amazed, and people are going to just think it's miraculous. And of course, he's the one that we need to follow. So the church, guys, this is the main takeaway here. The church is a false church, seductive church, and the church is joined to Antichrist. And the Antichrist wins converts in many, many ways, but one of his methods is to seemingly come back from the dead. Verse 9. If you're confused, thank God for verse 9. Here is the mind which has wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sits. So we're getting a little bit of some more clues here. Verse 9. 7 heads, 7 mountains. Now, Rome has been historically called the city built on 7 hills. So a lot of people will say, the harlot church, or the false church that's going to be joined to the Antichrist in the last days, is the Roman Catholic Church. I certainly think that there's a lot that's wrong with the Roman Catholic Church. Now, I know people who have been born-again Christians that have attended the Roman Catholic Church. I was raised as a Roman Catholic, so I'm not speaking from ignorance. I know that Jesus can be found, but there's a lot of other things that are very unbiblical about the Roman Catholic Church. Once again, not an attack on people. I'm just speaking the facts as I know them about a religious system. But I think Babylon the Great is going to be bigger than the Roman Catholic Church. Now, the Roman Catholic Church does reach around the world, that's for sure, and has a lot of influence around the world. But eventually, we're going to see that Antichrist is going to say there is no religion except Antichrist worship. And so the beast is going to use the church. And once again, I believe that religious Babylon is bigger than any one denomination. I think it turns into a world movement. Let me read something to you, very interesting, if I may, from a magazine called The Catholic Review. Now, this is written by a Catholic author, but he's pushing for an ecumenical approach for world peace. Listen to this. It's pretty damning, if I may say so. The Catholic Review says this: the unity of religion, promoted by the Holy Father Pope John Paul II and approved by His Holiness the Dalai Lama, is not a goal to be achieved immediately. So there's unity among all religions. This is what Pope John Paul II and Dalai Lama met and said, this is something that we need. We need a world religion. is not something to be achieved immediately, but a day may come when the love and compassion with which both Buddha and Christ preach so eloquently will unite the world in a common effort to save humanity from senseless destruction and lead toward the light in which we all believe. Now, that's not what Jesus preached. Jesus, of course, preached love your enemy, love your neighbor as yourself. But he said, come unto me, all you who are weary and heavy laden. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but by me. Dalai Lama will never say that. I've read books by the Dalai Lama, and I've never read him that he said anything like that at all. In fact, he writes against religion. And so at least one Catholic author, and there's probably more, are suggesting that a world religion or a world agreement, maybe we should call it a world philosophy, is what's needed to bring people to be on the same page. Those things exist. You can look them up. The arrow is traveling. The trajectory has been made, and the arrow is going to land in Revelation 17. We have to see, where are we at on the trajectory? I think there's still a ways to go, but the arrow has certainly been fired. Verse 11, the beast that was, here we go again, the beast that was is himself also the eighth, and of the seven, and is going into perdition. I skipped a verse, excuse me. Verse 10, there are also 7 kings. 5 have fallen, so 5 kings have come and gone. One is, and when John wrote, the king, if you will, or the emperor was Domitian. It was the Roman Empire. So that was the 6th kingdom that we're talking about. And the other has not yet come. After Domitian, there's going to be another world kingdom. And when he comes, he must continue for a short time. And the beast that was and is not is himself also the 8th, and is of the 7, and is going to perdition. So let me read from my notes. Some people are saying this. There's been 7 Roman emperors, 5 had died, 1 was alive at the time, and another one would come. They might be talking about that. Rulership of 7 different persons. Other people point to 5 world empires that had already passed. Now, John's living in the 1st century. Before him, there had been certainly many empires and many kingdoms, but 5 main world kingdoms: Egypt, Assyria, Babylonia, Medo-Persia, and Greece. So those 5 had passed. The 6th one was Rome, but Rome was going to fall, as we know, did fall. And a 7th world empire was going to come. Another world empire is going to come that's going to have a worldwide influence in the same scope that Rome did. And we haven't seen that yet. And I believe that's going to be when Antichrist gathers his people together and creates a new world empire. The 7th world empire king has yet to be, and it won't last very long. Verse 11, the beast that was and is not is himself also the 8th, and is of the 7, and is of going into perdition. So Antichrist is part of that 7th Roman Empire, that 2nd Roman Empire, which is a rebirth of the old Roman Empire. Remember, I mentioned to you back in Daniel chapter 2, when Daniel had that vision, he saw the legs of iron, but the toes were of iron and clay. The Roman Empire was described in antiquity as being of iron, rugged, strong, marching over people. But a revived Roman Empire will happen, but it's not going to be as strong as the previous one. And we are told here, Antichrist, spiritually speaking, was of the 7th and will come again and be the 8th. But he's going to go into perdition. He's going to go to the lake of fire. Verse 12. The 10 horns which you saw are 10 kings who have received no kingdom as of yet. So in John's day, he saw 10 kings that were yet to receive power, but they receive authority for 1 hour as kings. Notice, verse 12, with the beast. The Antichrist is going to have such an amazing world influence that he's going to organize these 10 regions of the earth. Some people used to think it was the European Union. It could just be 10 continental regions. It could be, who knows what it's going to be, but he's going to gather them and they're going to align themselves with him, but it's not going to last for very long. They are going to exist before he is revealed. When he is revealed, there's going to be a coupling together, but it's not going to last for very long. John tells us it only lasts for an hour. Look at verse 13. These are of one mind, and they will give their power and authority to the beast. Once again, what did the Pope and Dalai Lama say? We need to come together. These 10 regional kingdoms, these 10 regional governments with their armies and with all their resources and all their money and all their technology and all these things, when the Antichrist comes on the scene, they're going to say, you know what? We just need to surrender to this guy. This is the guy. This is the guy that we need to follow. This is the guy that's going to bring world peace. This is the guy that's going to bring us all together. And so they're going to submit to him. Verse 13, once again, these are of one mind. They will give their power and authority to the beast. Verse 14, these will make war with the Lamb. Antichrist is always out to persecute Jesus Christ and his people. Remember when Jesus, before his ministry started, went into the desert for 40 days, was tempted by Satan. One of the things that Satan said was, I'll give you all the kingdoms of the world if you'll just bow down and worship me. And so we still see that 2,000 years later, we still see that desire from the wicked one to want to rise above God and rise above the Lamb of God. These, verse 14, will make war with the Lamb, but the Lamb will overcome them. When I was reading that earlier, I just had to smile. For he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and those who are with him are called, chosen, and faithful. So this is going to happen then at the Valley of Megiddo. We read about that in Revelation 16. The armies from the east are going to come when the Euphrates River is dried up. There's going to be the armies of the world gathering there in the Valley of Megiddo to make war against Israel, but more specifically against Jesus Christ and his people. Verse 15, then he said to me, the waters which you saw where the harlot sits, remember, the harlot is the seducing church. The waters where she sits on, they are peoples. We read it. We don't even have to guess. They are multitudes. They are nations. They are tongues. So every language, every ethnicity, every culture, there's going to be a world church that's going to seduce or try to seduce all people around the world. And that world church is going to be joined to the beast, to the Antichrist. Antichrist, I believe, using the church to gain followers, but eventually will disregard the church. Verse 16, and the 10 horns which you saw on the beast, these will hate the harlot. So now there's a little civil war going on. These world leaders, they're going to hate the church, and they will make her desolate and naked, eat her flesh, and burn her with fire. So eventually, this seventh world empire, which is led by the Antichrist, when they don't need the church anymore, they're going to turn against the church. The false religious system is going to disappear because the Antichrist, why is it going to disappear? Because the Antichrist is going to demand to be worshipped as God. And no Pope's going to go along with that. No Dalai Lama is going to go along with that. No, Mormon Church or Baha'i Faith or Calvary Chapel, Baptist, Protestants, Catholics, Jews, nobody's going to go along with that. And he's finally going to say, there is no religion except Antichrist worship. Worship the beast. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 says this, the son of perdition who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God or that is worshipped, so that he sits in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. And so Antichrist eventually, giving the seducing church a ride for a while, until he doesn't need her anymore. Verse 17, for God has put it into their hearts to fulfill his purpose, to be of one mind and to give their kingdoms to the beast until the words of God are fulfilled. So God allows, if you will, deceiving spirits, Satan himself, to influence and to deceive these people, thinking that following the Antichrist is going to be the best thing that they can do. Verse 18, and the woman whom you saw is that great city which reigns over the kings of the earth. So is it actual Babylon? Is it Rome? I'll leave that for others. But what do we know for sure? There's going to be a world church. It's going to be a seductive church. It's going to be an impure church. It's going to be a church that appeals to the flesh. Even within what is called Christendom in the United States, there, in my opinion, I don't get everything right. But I'm seeing some people that I think are absolutely carnal and absolutely following the flesh. leaders in churches. And in my time as a pastor over the last 30 years, it's only gotten worse. And my lifetime is just a blip on the radar screen of history. But I've seen the trajectory of the arrow, if you will. And it's going to land here in Revelation 17. The bad news is all that's coming. The good news is the Lamb will overcome them. If you are connected to Jesus Christ, he makes all things work together for good, and he will keep you. You keep yourself in the love of God, and he will keep you. We study the book of the Revelation to see what's coming. You know, I remember when I was a kid, 16 years old, studying, you know, for my driver's license test, studying so I could pass that thing that was coming. We are studying the book of the Revelation so we can gauge where we're at in the history of man, so that we can warn other people, so that we can know what to stay away from, so that we can see where we are a little bit on the timeline of these things, and to share with others. So let me pray for us. Thanks for watching. Lord, thank you so much that you give us your word. Dark days coming, but Lord, in you, you are the light of the world. And so as we walk in you, we walk in light. Pray you to bless these listeners, these viewers. Help us to be wise as serpents and gentle as doves, and to bring the fragrance of Jesus Christ everywhere we go. So thank you, Lord. We commit all this to you, and we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. So next week, I will not be here. That will be, what's today? The 19th plus 7, 26th. I'll be gone. Going to be on vacation with my wife. So we'll pick it up in 2 weeks. We will pick it up in Revelation chapter 18. And so thanks so much for watching. God bless you guys. Remember, I have a YouTube channel if you want to watch some of these, review anything, share them with people. Have a website called Build Up the Church. A lot of my study notes are going on there now. Also, if you are a lady and you'd like to go to ladies' Bible studies, my wife is an amazing Bible study teacher and leader, and she has just wrote up a full curriculum for 2 Corinthians, and so it's study group material, so somebody can facilitate groups. So it's there for you guys. Take it. You can download it. You can use it for free. So share that good news with people. Okay. Thanks so much, guys. God bless. Bye-bye.